Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
I am doing fantastic. I had a heck of a weekend coming into this. My aunt turned 85 years old. So I went to the birthday party where I got to reconnect with family members that I haven't seen in years.
Oh, that must have been so much fun. That,
It was absolutely amazing.
yeah. I mean, I actually went to a nice party yesterday at our church. Our faith formation director, who's has become a good friend of mine over the last 9 years since I got involved with it with her, is retiring, and it was a reception for her. And I actually ran into a whole lot of people that I hadn't seen for a really long time either, who she'd known over the years. So it's always fun reminiscing with that. So it's what can I say?
It
You folks
it
there, just keep in touch with people, and if you haven't, reach out to somebody this week and get together with them.
Absolutely. It is great to reconnect with folks, and you would be amazed at the things that come up, not just in conversation, but memories that just suddenly resurface. At one point, two of my cousins started singing a song that my grandfather used to sing to us. And it was amazing how we all started joining in because we all remembered all the words as they were coming out. None of us have thought about this in years, but just being together and having the conversation, it was great seeing the memories flow.
I want to see the video on YouTube. That sounds.
I don't know if they recorded that or not, but it wouldn't surprise me because people were taking photos and doing recordings, so it may show up.
Then you have to get back together again this weekend and redo it. So there
There
you go.
you go. So, on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the tools to get yourself organized. And this is a good, people are doing their spring cleaning now. They're preparing now to go on summer vacations. And organization is key because you don't want to come back from a vacation with everything all over your desk. But more than that, it's a way to relieve stress. And if you are organized, it actually enhances your creativity, reduces your stress, and that's what we're going to be talking about is simple tools that you can use. And the first one I am going to bring up is something you should have multiple versions of this, but it is an inbox. And we all have the inbox for our emails. And the key to having an inbox is not that you keep dumping things into it, but that you clear it out on a regular basis and file things. And this doesn't just go for your email inbox. I have multiple inboxes. I have two physical inboxes. One is just for bills. As they come in, I put them in the inbox. One is a general inbox. Again, mail, things that come across that I know I'm going to have to file, so I print out, all goes in the inbox. And at least once a week, I clear the inbox and put everything in the file cabinets and put everything where it needs to go. But I don't take the time out of my busy schedule to do that. I put it in the inbox and I have a scheduled time on Fridays. And in fact, this idea came from David Allen and his book, Getting Things Done. And in his book, he refers to this as the weekly review. And that is what I do. I go through the inboxes, the email inbox, the physical inboxes. And I also have a hard drive that is just labeled an inbox. If people send me attachments of things I need to read, it all goes on that hard drive. until that weekly review when I get a chance to go, okay, this has to be read now. This isn't so important, but I don't want to get rid of it. So I'll put this in a reference file. And that reference file can either be a printout that I put in a physical file cabinet or filed in a reference folder on my computer. But it all starts with the inbox. And that's really the key to starting to get organized, is having these inboxes so you're not just putting out piles on your desk, or we've all seen the desktop of computers covered in files. This way, you're starting the organization process as soon as something comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I have both grown up BC before computers came, and I remember going into my father's office with this big, huge desk, and I can't remember what the color of the top was of it was because it was always cluttered with back then, physical magazines. Remember those folks?
Yes.
And that kind of stuff too. But as time goes on, I mean, I have developed obviously a manual system years ago, which I've turned into a combination of my manual system, which I rely on a whole lot. And you see me walk around all the time with my spreadsheets, of which I have two of them. I have one spreadsheet that both of them are made out of Excel, which I love because, as a lot of I got my accounting degree before computers, and when Excel came out, I said there is a God because it just made things so much easier. But all Excel is rows and columns. And
Yep.
basically, using a column to sort things out, you can do magic with that. So my manual system before the computers came out is I would walk around with my day planner in my hand and my calendar, and I just write stuff down in that. And then once I thought about Excel, I developed two different spreadsheets. One is just a column for the times of the day, and then across the top rows for the times of the day, and columns for the days of the week. And in that, I wrote down my whole schedule, and I carry that around with me during the week. And I write on that all the new stuff that comes up. And every weekend, I go and I redo that. As far as the to-do list goes, all that is, it's a column with priorities in it, and then just a list of tasks. And what I do is I prioritize that every single weekend, but all week long, I'm writing things down on that so that over the weekend, I can stick them in there. So those two things are my system as far as how I do things manually. And as far as the inbox goes, I don't use my phone for emails hardly at all. I use Outlook. And what I have in my Outlook thing, obviously, I have my inbox and that kind of stuff, but I also have subfolders for everything, every topic. So it could be active, follow up, different topics such as church and type of business and so on and so forth. And what I do is I will move things from the inbox into those folders right away so that I can go to those and clean those out. And then obviously I just delete everything that I possibly can every day and throw that in there. But again, it's a system where organization is the key. And you said it's really, really important to do a weekly purge. What I do is once a week, I make sure that my desk is all cleaned up. And it's so important to do that. Number one, to find things. Number two, for your own peace of mind. I mean, you talked about relieving stress. If you walk in and your desk is clean and you go to your email folder and basically the only stuff that's in there is current or the things you need to get to, and it's right there at your fingertips. It's so important. And we've talked about getting organized in life and so on and so forth. I'm a kitchen nerd. I always have the dishes done right after I do that. I mean, as I said, my duty at home is to grill and do dishes, and my wife does all the cooking and doesn't like doing all that other stuff. So we've been a great team for a long, long time doing those kind of things also. So I mean, these organizational tips you can use for your daily life also. But just a couple of simple things. All I do is organize things on paper using Excel, and I organize things in my inbox by sorting things out. So, and then you also have developed a really wonderful planner, which you've had for a long time, which comes in manual form. And I know you can use this online too, which helps people do that also, and also track the results of what they're doing. So I know we've talked about this before, but I think this is a great time for you to talk about how that came about and how people use that to keep themselves organized.
Yeah, we do have a planner. Before I talk about that, I just want to make a note. You said you use Excel. Well, for those of our listeners that would like to do something like that but get intimidated by spreadsheets, I want to point out that both Microsoft Word on the PC and Apple Pages, which is the Mac word processor, both have the ability to create tables in their documents. And they've gotten so advanced that anything you do in a spreadsheet, you can now do on those tables. So if you're more comfortable using a word processor than you are a spreadsheet, you can still create the rows and columns and organize yourself that way.
Yeah, I've never used Word.
The-
I've used Word for tables, but I never realized that it had like sorting capabilities and all that other kind of stuff. So that's really cool.
they do now, yes.
Yeah.
So that's something else that people can use. As for yeah, we created the Biznetics Daily Planner probably going back about 10 years now. It's still available on Amazon for anybody who's interested, but it starts out at its core is a simple calendar. And a calendar all by itself is a very powerful organizational tool because there are things that you need to do at particular times. And a calendar allows you to schedule them when you are going to do it. And you can block out time. So you can block out, you're going to work on this project, this date, at this time. You can block out, you've got your son's Little League game on this date at this time. And so you know those times are taken. And that's very important because we all have things coming up during the day. We all have projects that they have to be done by a certain deadline, but not necessarily at a certain time. So the things that are immovable, like events, like places you have to be, like meetings, those should go on your calendar, and everything else can be scheduled around those. And it's also important to use your calendar to schedule buffer times. And these are times that you're purposely not scheduling anything so that you have time to check your emails, to return phone calls, to just think about the projects that you're working on and try to get creative so you can create these buffer zones as well. Now, also in the planner, we put to do lists. So you've got a to do list for that day for all the things that aren't time sensitive. And of course, we also included a gratitude journal so you could track what you're grateful for and inspirational quotes to help you stay motivated. But one of the unique things that this planner has is two icons on every line of the calendar. And these are icons to help you measure your goals and your energy. So one is a lightning bolt icon, and that is to measure your energy. So if you're focused, if you're at high energy, you shade that in. If it's average energy, the way most of us spend the vast majority of our time, we're not terribly energized, but we're also not depleted. You color in half of the icon. And when you're tired, when you're depleted, when you're running on empty, you leave the icon empty. The reason for this is that after doing this for several weeks, it gives you a benchmark for when your peak hours are, when you work best. Are you a morning person? Are you an afternoon person? Are you an evening person? Do you find that you start, fading at 3:30 every day? Getting to know how your body works and how your energy flows makes it easier to organize your day because you can schedule your most important tasks at the times when you have peak energy. The circle icon is for tracking your goals, and that's something else. We have goal setting exercises at the beginning of the planner, and then each day it breaks down into a sprint goal, which is the goal for that day that's going to get you closer to your overall goals. Well, the circle is a measure of what you're doing at that moment and is it related to your goals. So if it's spot on and it's absolutely necessary for your goals, you color that in. If you're doing more administrative tasks, things that have to be done but aren't necessarily goal oriented, like billing, like accounts receivable, things like that, you color half of it in. If what you're doing has no relation to your goal, you're scrolling through Facebook, you're watching television, you leave it empty. And this is to show you how much extra time you can gain back in your day if you get rid of all the activities that have no value for you. So that's the planner. And again, the heart of it is the calendar. And it doesn't matter if you use our planner, a day timer, or just the calendar in Outlook or the calendar on your Mac. A calendar all by itself is a very powerful organizational tool, and we should all be using these on a regular basis. Now, the key to using the calendar and also to the inbox, your email, to do lists, the key is that these have to be tools that you check on a regular basis. If you don't check them on a regular basis, your mind doesn't acknowledge that they exist. So your mind tries to keep everything going in your memory. And our memories are not meant to function that way. So that causes stress. And, these can be paper calendars, they can be computerized calendars, whatever works best for you. But once you decide what tools you're going to use, you have to check them on a regular basis. I have a program that is a to do list and calendar. And as soon as I turn on my computer, first thing in the morning, I have that program set to automatically launch. So that first thing I see, okay, this is what I have to do today. This is where I have to be today. And I start my day from there. I already know, okay, this is what's scheduled. Let's get going.
Yeah, and that's basically when I'm using my Excel spreadsheet for my calendar, I'm looking at the whole week at a snapshot. And as I say, the most important thing that I do is I always have that in my pocket and my pen in my pocket so that when something comes up, I can just write it in there. And I still do have my day planner because sometimes things are more than 6 weeks out, and I'll write stuff in there all the time from the calendar that I pick up during the week, so that I have that there. Another tool that I used, that I've been using for probably 15, 20 years, was something I learned about at a networking meeting. And although we get less papers now than we used to get, this is a simple manual system for organizing things. And basically the way that it works is you get 12 calendars for the months of the year, and you buy 31 calendars of a different color for the days of the month. And right now, we are May 6th when we're recording this, or the day after Cinco de Mayo. And so basically, I have the days of the month from 5 through 31 there. The next calendar behind that says June on it. And June is the next month of the year. And right now, June has days 1 through 5 right behind that. And then behind that, it's July, August, September, all the way through April of next year, all through May of next year, as far as the calendars go. So that what I can do is whatever I get paper wise, I can put that in a monthly calendar if I want to look at it later on, or I can put it for next week if I want to look at it next week. But by looking at that and filing things that way, instead of putting them on your desk and letting them pile up, it's a great way to keep yourself organized. And once upon a time when all we had was mail, the best way to sort those things out was to have 3 or 4 baskets there where you put urgent things that you have to go at right away in the top thing. And then the next one would be things you need to look at for the next week. And then maybe the next month. And if things sit there too long, you just throw them out. So there's different ways that will work for you. But the most important thing is when you see something for the very first time, put it someplace where you are organized and you'll be looking at it when you need to look at it. And that's key. And, as you go along, it's really, really important to just analyze and adjust. And with your planner and with everybody's planner, I highly recommend that you make sure that you have your work life balance in there. In other words, your calendar is not just for business stuff. If you want to plan a date
Yep.
night every week with your wife or family time and so on and so forth, block that time out every single week so that you cannot touch that time. If you have a vacation planned, have that in your calendar so you can look at that as much as possible. And other nice things to have with you is a nice workspace where it's visually pleasing to you. I mean, I talked about this before, but I have calendars with family pictures all over here, and I work in my office where I'm looking out into the woods and so on and so forth. So if you don't have an office atmosphere that's conducive to that, do something creative to make it look nice so that you'll be more relaxed when you're working there too. But there's all kinds of tools out there. The most important thing is to just get going and pick out a few and use them so that number one, whenever things occur, you put them someplace where you know when you're going to look at that. And by doing that, you are going to relieve a whole lot of stress instead of scratching your head saying, okay, now what should I be doing now? It should be right in front of you all the time.
Yes, it should. And the tickler file that you mentioned with the the folders for the calendars, you can do that digitally as well. The to-do list program I have, I can put things on dates, up to a year in advance. And on that day, it'll show up on that day's to-do list. You can do it with calendars. And again, these programs have gotten so advanced that you can actually link emails to them. You can attach files to them so that everything you need to do the work is right there on that day and it shows up right in front of you. So it's a great way to, when you get something that you go, I'm going to have to do something about this, but it doesn't have to be done right now. And it's not just work things that you can do this with. If you're taking a vacation, you can put something in your tickler file for 2 weeks before the vacation to remind you to look up events that are going to be in that city when you're there so you can get tickets rather than trying to scramble while you're there to get tickets to events. So you can use it for work and for your day to day life. And yes, something else that you had said is so important is you need to personalize your workspace. And you should have a workspace, even if it's just a tiny little desk in a corner or a portable workspace that you take with you. But you should have a space that's just yours. You don't share this space that you can set up to make it the best that you work. So you're not sharing the space, so you're not moving things around every time for someone else. And again, it doesn't have to be a large space, but it has to be your space. And another tool that is so important, and most of us have this, and yet we don't use it as often as we should, is a garbage can. We all tend to keep things and we go, well, I might need this at some time in the future. And the odds are when you say that, you're actually probably never going to need that. But periodically, we need to go through our workspaces and go, yes, I'm not going to need this. I can get rid of this. Um, the last time I did a big purge of my office, I got rid of manuals for software that doesn't exist anymore. I don't have the software. I can't buy this software anymore. Programming language that are 4 and 5 versions out of date. It's like, yeah, I don't need these manuals. I can throw them away. And we do need to do that. You need to purge periodically and get rid of all of the things we don't need that have just piled up. Magazine articles that you put aside because you thought it would be interesting, and now a year later still haven't read it, it might not be of interest to you anymore. Think about, are you still interested in it? If not, throw it away.
Yeah, unless you want to take a year off to read everything that you have saved. I mean, it's one of the things that I also like doing too, which I'm sure you can do this online. But again, me being a manual person, we do take different vacations, and I have a generic vacation list as far as things that we need to bring for the items that you're going to bring everywhere. But then I have them tailored for where I'm going. So if I'm going for a week's beach vacation, I add stuff that has to do with that. If I'm going overseas, I'll add stuff that has to do with that instead of every time you're planning on going someplace saying, okay, what am I going to bring and so on and so forth. And when you're there, kicking yourself for not having it. So there's all different types of ways to do that. I'm sure that you can organize that, and you're organizer too, to go back to. But all it takes is just getting started and setting it up and just adapting as time goes on. So
Yeah, and there's nothing more basic to get you started organizing than making a list. And I always recommend to our clients, if you're just starting to get organized, then do a brain dump. Make lists of everything. So you could have a list of the things you need to take when you go on vacation, a list of projects that you're working on, a list of steps for each of those projects, and just get everything out onto paper or onto your digital planner, however you're most comfortable. But the idea is get it out of your head and put it somewhere that you are going to check on a regular basis. The more you get out of your head, the less stressed you are. So dump these things onto lists and start from there. And again, when something comes across your desk, if somebody has a request for you, if somebody says, I need you to take a look at something, rather than interrupting your work schedule and and stopping what you're doing this next thing, and then going back to what you're doing, which it is very difficult for your brain to switch gears like that. Most people don't realize it. So when you go back and forth between projects, you're actually adding more stress. So if it's urgent, you know, write it down, keep it in front of you. And then when you finish what you're doing, get to that. If it's not urgent, write it down and put it in your inbox. And then when you clear the inbox, you can do it then. But don't try to keep everything in your head. It doesn't work. And that has been proved on both a psychological level and a neurological level. It is so beneficial to get everything out of your head onto a notepad, into an inbox, and then deal with it in an organized manner. And I know there's so many people go, well, I thrive on the chaos. If I get this organized, it's going to interrupt my creativity. And actually, that's not true. And there's case after case of writers, directors, actors, people in highly creative fields who used to say that. And then they got organized and went, wow, once I got all this out of my head, the creativity just flowed. So you're actually blocking your own creativity by not taking advantage of these tools. So we are now just about at the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
yeah, I do like your last comment. Basically, what you're doing is you're building on the accomplishment sides of things and you're lessening your to-do list. Basically, our brains are full. When I talk to people and they ask me a question about something or whatever, I'll write something down because I say, hey, the database is full, but my memory is shot. So it just doesn't work that well. And the bottom line is our memory, as you're saying, are not designed for organizing things. And we stress out when we try to do that. So writing things down and coming up with a system to keep yourself organized as far as what you're doing, what you have to do, and everything else in your life. it's really, really important. Eric mentioned starting with a brain dump, and that's a great thing to do because once you write things down, you can start digitizing this if you want to do that, or putting them in folders and organizing them if you want to do that. And just by going through that in the first place, all of a sudden, everything that's in your brain is now on paper or somewhere, and you are starting to get organized. And that's your first victory right there. But it's so,
Yep.
so important to whatever makes you feel comfortable, whatever is you, just go out there, get the system started, and use it. There's a whole lot of different things out there to help you out, and just get going with it. And once you use that for a little bit, you are going to feel a whole lot less stressed, and you're going to be accomplishing a whole lot more with a whole lot less energy.
Definitely. It's a great way to get everything out of your head, relax, become more stress free. And as I said, the key takeaway I think everybody needs to remember is that whatever system you use, you need to check on a regular basis. If your brain knows that everything is in a place where you're going to be checking, then it knows it doesn't have to keep up with it. And if you're not good at this, if you're instituting new procedures that you're not used to yet, take advantage of things like the reminders on your phone. I use my digital calendar. My calendar syncs with my phone. So an hour before I have an appointment, my phone tells me, yes, you have an appointment coming up in an hour. And then, depending on what it is, it will give me another reminder. If it's something I have to go to, it actually will calculate with the Maps app how long it's going to take me and give me a reminder when I have to leave. Or if it's a Zoom call or a phone call, it will remind me 5 minutes before. So these reminders also help. So you don't have to do it all on your own. The tools will help ease you into this. You just have to choose the tools that work the same way that you do. If you have to change the way you work because of the way a tool operates, the odds are you won't use it. So find tools that work how you are comfortable. And that is so important because if you don't use the tools, you don't benefit from them. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.